8, 7, 6, 5.
Good afternoon, Gary Jobson here from Annapolis, Maryland, and I'm joined by two iconic sailors, all of us right now south of the Mason-Dixon line. Paul Foerster is in Texas, Kevin Burnham is down in Florida. And for all of those of you tuning in, we encourage you to be a member of U.S. Sailing. If you're not a member now, it's easy to renew your membership, ussailing.org. We've been having these Zoom or virtual interviews here for several months, and we've had a great list of sailors that I've gotten to interview. Most recently, Sally Barco and Annie Hagar. We've had Diana Tunnicliffe, Stan and Sally Honey. We've had Paul Kayard and Mark Foster and Terry Hutchinson, all of who had great careers in the sport of sailing. And I feel kind of heartened because when Paul and Kevin won their gold medal in the Olympics in Athens in 2004, which was kind of the capstone of their Olympic careers, I got to be there covering the games. And we were just talking earlier that the sailing would be ending today had we had the Olympic Games going on, but I certainly look forward to it a year from now. So with that, let me launch in and welcome you guys, and thank you very much for taking the time. These interviews go about 50 or 55 minutes, and I know Kevin's never been a loss for words, so but we'll keep it all under an hour. Well, first of all, let me start with Paul. How are you? What have you been up to? Have you done any sailing in the last couple months?
I'm doing good. I'm in Texas working my engineering job. I've actually done more sailing in the last couple of months than I've done for many years since the COVID-19 hit. Sailing a lot at my local club, Brush Creek Yacht Club, and sailing Sunfish. My wife and I bought a Flying Scot, so we're sailing that together. Sailing with my kids, some of the Sunfish. It's been fun.
Oh, very cool. Sandy Douglas, who you know that created and designed the original Flying Scot, is joining you in the National Sailing Hall of Fame, which will come up next month. So very cool. And you're still sailing a Sunfish?
I am. Yeah, we have a good fleet here at Rush Creek in Texas. So it's still my favorite boat to go out on, pretty much. Because I grew up sailing a laser, and I was always too small for a laser. So I've been watching lots of laser videos lately, trying to learn this downwind S turning technique. Because I'm still slow downwind in the Sunfish, so still got enough stuff to work on.
I wonder if the S turn technique from the laser applies to a Sunfish.
It seems to. At least I've been working on it. It seems to be working. So.
Well, I think it was 2 years ago. I did a Tuesday night race in a Sunfish. We had 12 or 13 boats, and somehow I cobbled together a third for the 5 races that night. And I decided maybe I'm too big for a Sunfish at my age. Kevin, how are you? What have you been up to, and where are you, and how's things?
I'm home on Miami Beach, and it's been a unusual summer, Gary, with the coronavirus. Before that, mostly no sailing, but a lot of coaching.
Have you got no sailing at all for you in the last few months?
No, none at all.
Well, I wrote a book, and you guys are in it. Here you go, Legends of American Sailing. Okay. I'll find a great picture here. I want to kind of kick off with this picture. It's one of my favorites in the book. And I'm sure, Kevin, you know what's coming. Hold on, there we go. There you go.
There you go. Yep. That wasn't planned. That was spontaneous, I can tell you.
You hadn't thought about that, covering that British sailor all around the course? You just decided to do a backflip off the side.
Yeah, that was fun.
So, well, let's talk about the Olympics a little bit. You know, Paul, the intriguing thing to me, I mean, you've got 4 Olympics in the FD and the 470, and 2 silvers and a gold. Very impressive. You had a slow start maybe in the first Olympics, but you did it with 4 different crews. I mean, it's very unique to do so well and then have 4 different crews in 4 different Olympics. So you must have learned from one to the next from that. So how did that work out, having 4 crews, and what did you learn from each?
Definitely learned from each of them. They all had their own expertises. And like when I started sailing with Kevin, I was used to saying ready about, hard to leave. But Kevin said, no, you have to do 1, 2, 3, and then we tack. It took me forever to get used to that. But Kevin had super skills downwind. He was great. Figuring out the shoot and flying the chute. Steve Bordeaux, I sailed with him at the '92 Olympics. He was the best sailor I knew in college sailing, so he was great on tactics and made me start with the crowd. I was always scared of starting with the crowd, so he got me into the mix of starting with the crowd. So they all had their specialties that I learned from, and they made me better, actually.
Andrew Goldman, he was a really organized type sailor.
Yeah, he's the one that got me into it. I wouldn't have probably started Olympic sailing, but he had a Flying Dutchman and needed a skipper, so he drove all the way to Texas, and we did the nationals down in Brownsville, Texas, and it was just a tryout to see if we worked well together. We won the nationals, and we sailed. We did a lot of training. Our peak was winning the 1988 European Championships in Spain. Went to the Olympics, and it was just too windy for us. We weren't ready for that. At least I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't prepared to how to sail the boat then. And that was actually what Steve Bordeaux helped me with. He made us go out and train in the heavy winds, because it's no fun sailing in the heavy winds if you're slow.
No fun sailing light wind if it's slow too.
That's true too. But growing up in
he
Texas,
was a pretty good laser sailor, wasn't he?
Steve, yeah, he was second at the Worlds before he started sailing the Flying Dutchman with me. Some guy from Australia, a famous guy, I forget the name, won those Worlds. So
Glenn Burke, maybe?
I think so, yeah.
Right. And Kevin, I mean, you kind of follow suit. You have a silver and a gold in the Olympics, and you had different skippers. You had Morgan Reeser the first time around, and then teaming up with Paul a little bit later. So how, Kevin, do you shift gears between 2 skippers with very different styles?
Well, I started with Morgan, and I sailed with him in an I-420 in midwinters just before he went to Kings Point, and we won that regatta. I had been sailing the 470 for a couple years, and they are both very talented sailors, both Paul and Morgan, and they're both different sailors. Paul was very quiet, Morgan was very verbal, and got along with both of them.
Well, of course, you had to train Paul to get the jargon down for tacking, 1, 2, 3 versus ready about.
Yeah, it's all timing.
Yeah, it's funny how that goes. And I did a little
We
research,
did that for the
Kevin.
last race against the Brits, because we did lots of tacks against those guys.
Well, I remember following that race live, tack for tack for tack, and something like that. You just make one little mistake one time on the tack or the jibes, and he could have gotten through, but you sure did a great job. So let's just talk about the 04 games. I believe that your average race, you had a 7.1 average, not counting your throw out. So that tells me that it was pretty intense competition in the men's 470 class in 2004. But you hung with it, and there you were in gold medal contention with one other boat going into that last race. So tell me a little bit about, Paul, start with you. How was that competition? And a 7 average doesn't seem that high, but yet it tells you how competitive the fleet was.
Oh, sure. There were probably 10 or more boats that could have won those Olympics. The Australians were probably the top going into those Olympics. But they didn't have such a good regatta. Kevin and I figured some stuff out before the regatta. We changed some equipment out, and all of a sudden we were equal to or faster than some of the top boats. So that really helped out a lot. Kevin made me stick with our old lightweight reaching spinnaker, and that saved us in a couple of really drifter races that we came from last place to first place in. Kevin made some good calls, especially the second to last race. We were in a tight battle with the Brits, and we were coming up to the weather mark, and it was all bunched up. Kevin said, "Hold your lane here. We need to get to the lay line." So, and I was getting ready to tack out. And so we held our lane. The Brits tacked out. We held our lane, got on the starboard tack lay line, and we rounded about 10th or so. And the Brits rounded way back. So that got us the lead going into the last race. And we were able to get ahead of them and just beat them in the last race and push them back. So
when you were covering them in that last race, were they noisy? Were they making a lot of noise? I mean, they could have been happy sitting there, but were you hearing from them?
In the beginning, before we even crossed the start line and the start went off, when we jumped on them because they got too far away from the line, that's when they were pretty vocal about, "Hey, get off our wind. You're attacking too close." And we were like, "You guys play fair. We're just sitting on you." and then after that, after the first couple, after we got to the start and we were ahead of them, they battled pretty hard for the first couple legs, but then realized that they were never going to catch the fleet and have a chance to beat us in the regatta.
Well, it was pretty exciting. Kevin, did you have anything to say to the Brits when they were behind you?
Well, the Joe and Nick used to call me Grandpa. I was older than their parents, and I didn't let them know that it bothered me, but it did get me a little bit. And as we were going upwind and we attacked a bunch of times, they stopped. And I came off the wire, and Paul goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I want to talk to him." And I said, "Don't you have any more tacks for Grandpa?" No. And they tacked, and we went back at it and stuff. And then we went downwind, and we really opened up on them. We were a rocket ship downwind. And we got to the gates, and Paul just spun head to wind between the gates. I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, we'll wait for him." So I stood up in the boat and I said, "Come on, Grandpa's waiting for you. Let's go, guys." It was fun. It was really a good time.
Oh my God. It's the kind of thing you hear with basketball players do that. Kevin, I did a little research, and I believe that in 2004, you were the oldest athlete in any sport in the Summer Games to win a gold medal that year, and you were 47 at the time.
I had sailed the 470 for 28 years, so I had a lot of experience, and I was never going to give up until I had to win it. That would have been my last time, I think. But
Santiago Lang in Rio, he was 54 when he won a gold medal in the NACRA.
Yes.
And then I think of Buddy Melges being 62 years old, skipper and steering an America's Cup boat to victory in 1992 at the age of 62. So there's hope.
Yes.
Keep going. Paul, do you follow the Olympic sailing these days?
A little bit. I've been watching some of what's been going on, but it's been impressive. The Australian 470 skipper, how he's done in the past Olympics with a gold and a silver the last couple. So.
Yeah, well, 2 golds and a silver, right?
Yeah.
And he did it with, he had one crew, Malcolm Page for the first gold, and then shifted gears with another crew. So we can assume it's him.
Yeah.
And with you two guys, I can assume it was both of you. Yeah. You had this, silver medals are good, but Sam Merrick once told me silver medals are good, but they're not, they're not perfect. And a gold medal is. So it was cool that you do that. Paul, how old are your kids now?
15 and 16.
Are they sailing?
Yep. It's not their favorite sport. One plays a lot of tennis. The other plays basketball.
Well, you played basketball in high school too, correct?
I did. I play a lot against my son.
Well, you're not the tallest sailor out there, and being a basketball, so I'm assuming you were the point guard?
Yes, I was a point guard.
And do you follow the NBA and basketball today?
Yep. They're starting up again. It's been interesting watching.
Who's your team?
Mavericks, Dallas Mavericks.
They've had some good ones over the year. Colorful owner.
Yeah. Hopefully this new European guy, Doncic, is going to be good.
Yeah, I've been reading about him. Do you think that playing basketball helped you with your sailing?
Sure. My basketball coach growing up in high school, he was super good and taught us the benefits of working extremely hard and trying to outwork the other teams, because we were a pretty small school and we played against the big schools. So we had lots of conditioning practice, long practices. So it was good. That kind of helps, I think, a lot in going into something like the Olympics where you need to be at the top of your game.
Kevin, did you play any sports in school other than sailing?
I was on the tennis team. I was a tennis player.
Awesome.
I had played from the 12 and unders, 14 and unders, 16 and unders, and I played on the high school team. And then I went sailing in the 470 with Steve Benjamin one day, and I quit the team. And I never looked back. My parents went sailing on Sundays. It was family day on Sundays, and my father worked really hard and left before we woke up to go to school, and he came home late. And so, as a kid, we always spent Sundays together. And I rode the bike down to Coral Reef one morning, and there was a car in the parking lot with a New York license plate and a boat on the top, and the guy's getting out of the car. And I was originally from Long Island. And I said, well, where are you from? And he said, Oyster Bay. And I said, oh, cool. I was from Garden City. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm training for the Olympics. And I go, no kidding. What sport are you in? And he said, sailing. And I said, sailing's in the Olympics? And I helped him take the boat off the roof. And he said, how tall? He goes, how much do you weigh? And I was like 145 pounds and 6'1". And I went out sailing with my brother and sister, my parents. When I came back, he had the rig all set up in the parking lot with the sails up. And I came riding by on the bike, and it just looked so cool. So his crew wasn't coming down for 2 weeks, and I decided, okay, I'll go out with you tomorrow and check it out. He had a harness and stuff, and it was Monday. I was at the University of Miami. And so I skipped school and I went out with him, and it was a Northwester. And we popped the kite and just went planing across Biscayne Bay. And I was hooked. And at the end of the day, he said, you really never done this? And I said, no. He goes, you're a natural. So when you hear that, I came home with my mother, to my mother, and she said, how was school? I said, I didn't go, Mom. I went sailing. She knew that I didn't like sailing, and I told her. And she said the same thing, sailing's in the Olympics? Lo and behold, I told her someday I'm going to win an Olympic medal.
Well, I don't know if Steve Benjamin's a natural, but I do know he sure works hard at the sport. And he's had another guy that's had an awful long run at a very high level, silver medalist himself, you recall. And he qualified the games in 80. And then we had the boycott.
That's right.
So he had to keep it going for 4 more years.
Couldn't have a better teacher, I'll tell you that. I learned to read the compass really quickly, and I really enjoyed it. We had a lot of practice races with Mike Loeb and Steve Cucchiaro and Dave Kellogg and Dave Pritchard. And a lot of guys came down for the 76 for that winter, to train for the 76 Olympics. And I remember winning the first practice race. That was just so exciting, you know.
Well, winning practice races are scary business because you start thinking and then the real race comes and sometimes it's a little different out there. So Paul, you're a graduate of the University of Texas and you got to sail in college all 4 years, I assume. I know you were All-American 3 times.
Yep.
And did collegiate sailing help you with your Olympic programs?
It helped me sail around the country more than just in Texas. We went out to California and sailed match race cup there. We went to New York and Rhode Island and Maine a few times. So it got me to go around the country. And I think the main thing that helped me out, other than all the practice you get sailing against the best people in the country, it's getting me contacts. And that's how it got me into Olympic sailing. From one of the college coaches put me in touch with Andrew Goldman. It got me started with the Flying Dutchman.
What coach was that?
He's from Brown. I forget his name.
All right. Well, anyway, he got you going with Andrew and thought you guys would be a good pair, and
Yep.
and you won the trials and got to the games. So back to the college sailing, getting around the country helped you out, but how about, the short course style racing, switching boats every race? Did that impact you at all? Or, the Olympics is so different. I'm just wondering if it helped you out.
It helps some, but I think you really need other types of sailing. Growing up, I had a big J24 fleet here in Texas that we sailed once a month at a big circuit regatta. So you got to take care of your own boat. You had to smooth your own bottom of your boat, tune the sails, tune the rigs, find the crew, figure it all out by yourself. And that helped me when went to the Flying Dutchman because you had to do all that for yourself. Same thing with the 470. It also gets you sailing with other really good sailors, especially on the J24 when we first started sailing it. We crewed for a really good sailor, and that just jumped me up to being a much better sailor when I got to take the helm.
Who was that? Who were you sailing with?
It's Dr. Bill Allen from Corpus Christi.
Corpus Christi, that's a windy place, or can be.
It was. We sailed a couple of North Americans there. It's a lot of fun, a very fun place to sail.
And, I sailed Finns one time. It was pretty choppy, if I recall. You
Yes,
go
very
outside that harbor there and
Yep.
Pretty choppy. Do you think, Paul, that we should try to get our collegiate sailing system a little bit more in line with our Olympic programs by boats or longer courses, or kind of trying to use the collegiate system to improve our Olympic performance?
I think that would be a big help to our Olympic team. Maybe the first year or two they could sell collegiate boats, but then have other boats available for the guys that have been doing collegiate sailing for the juniors and seniors to maybe sell 470s or some kind of Olympic boat so they get used to all of the details that go into that kind of sailing.
I think the University of Michigan, I believe in either 73 or 74, bought a fleet of 470s. That was their collegiate boat. It's pretty cool. And you had to be, bigger crews and stuff, but I thought that was pretty good. And during my collegiate career, one year I won the single-handed college champs, and because I was the college single-handed champ, I got a Finn to go race in the Olympic trials. So this was Harry Anderson and Glenn Foster. So they were thinking, well, let's get the college kids doing Olympic classes. And I'm not sure we do that today as well.
It's hard because we're so spread out around the country.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, you kind of shifted gears from all your Olympics and a wide variety of racing, and then you've gotten yourself into coaching. And is is that a natural transition to coach, or you find it harder, or how did you make that happen?
Well, Gary, I thought about our Olympic team and the lack of medals we've been winning lately, and I thought I'd like to help the kids out, you know. So I took U.S. sailing courses levels 1, 2, and 3, and I really felt that the Club 420 was a boat that was destroying our youth. It was good for tactics, but it didn't teach them anything about sail shapes. You just pull the sails in as tight as you could get them. And so I got a couple of teams with the I-420s, and I got them out of the Opties directly into the I-420s, and we're moving the spreaders and the mast steps and teaching them about sail shapes. And I really enjoyed that. I was working with a team group out of Sewanaka Yacht Club in Oyster Bay. And one team went and got second in the worlds in Sanyo, China, Tommy Rice and Trevor Bornorth. Trevor was actually a driver, and he grew up at that time. You know, he got so big, we made him a crew, and I taught him how to fly the kite and everything. And then J.C. Hermes won the worlds in Corpus Christi, and he was part of that group. And then I moved on to Melges 20s and Etchells and E-Scows and Melges 24s. And
Have you sailed a better boat than an E-Scow?
I love them. You know, I mean, really, so much fun. You know, I got a team going really fast, and they did extremely well. I just really kind of tuned the rig up like I did in the 470. And they sailed it a little bit different than what everyone else was sailing the boats in Barnegat Bay. And they started winning everything. And it was really a lot of fun.
So how do you keep your emotions in check when you're the coach? You know, you can't actually do it. You can set them up, give them all the guidance, pat them on the back, and send them out there. How do you keep your emotions in check?
Well, I don't. You know, I'm in the boat with them. I watch everything they do, and I get excited when they do well, and I get disappointed when they don't. You know, so.
Paul, have you ever been to the E-Scow Blue Chip Regatta?
No, I haven't been there.
They missed the boat. They should have had you. They have this. They have all the top scow sailors in September at Pewaukee, Wisconsin, and then they invite what they call a mystery guest. Kevin, have you ever done that regatta, the Blue Chip?
Yes, just a couple of years ago. It was a blast. We really had fun. My wife came with me, and I had Jimmy Campbell and Dex. It was just a blast. It's such a good time. I did the slideshow there at the club and brought the medals, and it's just a great group of people. I stayed at Peter and Edith Harkin's house, and I just loved them. And it was just one of those lifetime memories.
I mean, one of the things that impresses me about that is how good those E-Scow sailors are.
Yeah.
You know, the Porters and Melgas, and there's a whole group of them that just seem to be super duper fast. And Paul, I if it's okay with you, I'm going to mention that they ought to invite you to be a mystery guest some year.
I think
you have a good time. They do a good job of cutting you down to size, though. You know.
Yeah.
Dennis Conner got beat one year. He was the mystery guest, and it really bugged him for about 2 years. So he came back as a mystery guest, but this time he had Buddy Melgas crewing for him, and they won the Blue Chip. So
yeah.
There you go.
Do you guys interface with some of our young Olympians coming up? Paul, do you talk with Stu McNay or Dave Hughes or some of the younger sailors coming along?
Not a whole lot. We had a Zoom meeting with them a few months ago that was pretty interesting. We just relayed what we knew and try to help them out for the Tokyo Olympics, which is postponed now. So, but I'm available if they have any questions.
Do you think for the U.S. team, this year delay will be helpful to our sailors?
Yes. I would have no idea.
You know, it
Hopefully
seems
we
like a
still
young
have-
kid, although Stu McNay and Dave Hughes aren't so young anymore, so.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're getting to keep going to regattas and keep their practice going. I would imagine the countries that have teams that have more than one boat are keeping their practice going and are keeping their edge. But I would be worried about Stu and them if they didn't have anybody to sail against, if they had to stay quarantined here in the U.S.
I don't think there's much sailing going on, formal. There might be Wednesday night or sailing around the buoy stuff,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's any high level sailing on. So
No,
that's a
out
good
of,
point.
they're in Beverly, Massachusetts, and they're sailing against the girls' team out there. I know they've been there for the summer. And I see them in the wintertime. Yeah, I was coaching the Canadian boys. We had quite a few boats out, take them out to the ocean, and they're doing well.
So you sail you go off the beach, or you sail all the way out the inlet, or how do you get out there?
We tow them out, Gary, from the U.S. Olympic Sailing Center, tow them out past Key Biscayne, and then cut them loose. It's a little bit of a tow, but it's not too bad.
But it's important to get out in the big waves and the bigger breeze.
I think it is. Yeah, there's always more wind in the ocean than there is in the bay.
Huh. So are you?
The Gulf Stream's nearby, so we could sail out into the Gulf Stream, and that's a whole nother, variable that they really, not many people get to do, so it's, Paul and I spent some time out off the Key Biscayne, and I think it was very beneficial.
Be careful, you'll end up in Fort Lauderdale or further north pretty fast in that Gulf Stream.
Yeah.
Remember there were breaking waves out there. One day we went, Kevin, and we said, we got to go over these. They're only chance.
That was fun.
So Kevin, for you, a new events coming up in the Olympics in 2024 and 2028, double-handed, mixed crew, 30, 32-foot boat, long distance race. What do you think?
I think it's, I don't want to do it, but I think, is it overnight?
It's 400 to 500 miles. The idea is
Wow.
3 days, 2 nights.
Yeah.
And you
Where
have
are the
Stan
boats?
Honey's nifty graphics so you can track the boats all time zones, 24 hours a day.
Uh-huh.
What kind of
And,
boat?
so it's an endurance and minimal equipment, minimal electronics, but we can interview them during the race.
Excellent. Wow, that sounds like fun.
So
And they're 30 footers, so they're one design.
they'll be provided boats. I don't know if they'll be 16 or 18, and they'll be in the 30 to 32 foot range. The idea, it's not the boat that's important. What's important is the long distance race and the competition.
Yes.
So, I'm thinking of you and Elizabeth.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I enjoy sailing in the ocean. I like going offshore. I did the World 1000 with Randy Smythe, and that was a lot of fun. I was even, I was a little depressed when we finished. We sailed from Miami to Virginia, and it was really a good time.
I think I've gotten to know Randy, doing a couple TV series, America's Cup and Olympics with him. He's a smart guy. He's very, very calm, but I can see how methodical he was in sailing. So
Yeah, we had a wild boat. It was designed by Richard Rourke, 21 foot, and you could have any boat you wanted, So we had Pat Malloy from the old Intuition campaigns, and he sponsored us in the Formula 40s when we had the Pro Sales series, and he gave us the money to build this boat that Richard Rourke designed, and it was concave underneath. It had almost like a porpoise nose, and it rolled into a concave to the beam, so that the bows actually lifted.
Huh.
And we had a rack that went out like an Eskimo shoe, and we sat in line with each other, and we just absolutely hauled ass. We won pretty easily.
I imagine. He sure is good with those multi-hulls.
Yeah, he is.
Well, what do you think of these foiling boats that we're seeing more and more of these days?
I think they're pretty dang amazing. I tried to sell one of the foiling moths once in Austin, and the winds was really shifting up and down. I was all over the place, but it's really impressive how fast those things can go and how in control they can still be.
You know, and following the America's Cup like I do and getting to know lots of crews, one of the things that interests me is how many of these sailors have engineering backgrounds, engineering degrees, and that seems to be helpful. And you certainly have an engineering background and degree. Did that help your sailing?
Maybe a little bit. Understanding how the rig and the sails work, understanding the angles and making your best VMG and stuff like that. I don't think it's necessary, but it can help as long as you don't overuse it and overthink it.
Well, Gary, I could tell you a story with Paul. We first started sailing. He'd always move his rudder back a little bit for the upwind for the helm. And as soon as we turned the corner and popped the kite, we would wipe out. And it just continuously kept happening. We were in Barcelona and crashing and swimming, and we got to Hieres and the same thing happened. And I just told him, I said, you can't do that. It just, obviously it's not working. And he said, okay, we're going to take tomorrow off. Don't come down to the boat. So I said, okay, and the next day I come down, I take the cover off, and he's got this mathematical figure in pencil all over the transom. And he designed these gudgeons. And I don't know where he got the time to do everything that day, but he did. And he had them come off the boat to the maximum allowance off the transom. And that let the rudder be straight up and down. And now every 470's setup on the rudder is like that. Paul designed it. And I'm very anal, and I like a clean boat and a dry boat all the time. I sailed barefoot, so I knew water was in the boat. I would sponge it out with my toes, with the sponge. And I went with the acetone can to wipe it off. And he said, no, leave that on for everybody to see. And then we started doing really well after that. We never crashed really after that. It was good.
Kevin, I forgot that you raced barefoot all the time.
Yeah, in the 470 I did, yeah. It just, you had such a better feel for the boat. It really, wrapping the toes around the rail when you're trapping and getting in the boat. I had the boat with a windsurf boom grip all over the centerboard trunk so I could hike on it without any problems. And I think it really helped.
I think you wore shoes once sailing with me, and it was the day it was snowing in Athens, Greece.
Yeah.
Biggest snowstorm they'd ever seen.
We got there, and the next morning I opened the curtains to the hotel, and there's snow on the ground. And Paul's in bed, and I said, Paul, there's snow on the ground. He goes, oh, no, there isn't. We're in Athens. I go, there is, and I'm not going sailing in it until it's gone, And of course, we were at a regatta, and our Dutch tuning partners, the Coster brothers, won the regatta because they're used to sailing in the snow. But we didn't do that well in that regatta.
Did you ever stub your toe or hurt your foot doing that?
No, not really. I was always, I was pretty careful. I really didn't have any problems with that. In Athens, we had a Maltimi in the practice, and we had Maltimi on the second day, but I got spun 180 on the wire, and my feet were up against the rail, and my butt was pressing against them, and I couldn't get off. and I was stuck because the boat was heeling over. I got wiped out by a wave, and the top of my foot got really swollen, and it blew up, and I had to go to the U.S. Medical Center at the Olympic Village, and I was in there in the afternoon in a bucket of ice, and I said, well, you got to come back tomorrow morning, so I went there at 7 in the morning, and I've got my foot in the bucket of ice, and the little gymnast girls come in, and they got in to these Rubbermaid plastic garbage pails with ice and water, and they just stepped up in them, and it was up to their necks. And I'm sitting there holding on to the table with my foot in an ice thing, and they've got their whole body in there, and they're just chatting away. And I thought, oh, well, but it was neat really meeting them. And then later I met all the track guys. They do it too, but it's only up to their waists.
So this was during the games.
This was just before the games, and they were practicing. We were practicing. When the games came, my ankle, my foot was good, but we won the medal on the 10th day, and there was 18 more days of competition, and I had met all the track guys, and so I came into the mess hall, and they all saw the medal, and they're coming up to me, and they wanted me to come with them. So the next morning, I went on the bus with them to their training facility. And I really had a great time at those Olympics. I really did. I got to meet a lot of people. I sat on the track with them. I sat on the women's volleyball bench with them and watched them play the Cuba team. And I watched the 100-meter hurdles.
Wow.
And I was at the end, and I watched that gun go off, and that Chinese guy, man, he hit that first hurdle without a stutter step. He just stretched, and it was exciting to see. It really was something. Yeah, it was really a great time.
And both you guys got, experience coming in the opening ceremony. That's a pretty exciting time.
Yeah. I think Kevin went to the opening ceremonies, and I did not.
You did? Why not?
We had to race the next day, so I hung out with my family and watched it on TV. Yeah. Kevin, you went though, right?
Yeah, but I think the Barcelona opening game, that was just way over the top. That was with the dream team leading us in, and the 3 opera singers and the guy shooting the arrow into light. I mean, it was really, being you on the team, in the United States, we're in the back of entering the stadium. So all the countries go before us. And when the dream team came with us, the place was just so loud, and everyone's supposed to form behind their flag. We all line up behind the flag. But as soon as we lined up, everyone left their lines to swarm the dream team. And it was just a big party. It was really fun. Great times.
I like the story about the dream team. They'd be on the floor doing warm-ups, and the other players of the other teams would come over to get their autographs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really something. It'd be interesting, Paul, the basketball player, if you took that dream team from 1992 with Magic and Michael Jordan and, Larry Bird, on, but played today against LeBron and Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant, how would they match up?
I think it'd be a great game.
It would be a great game.
Yeah.
I would think Barcelona.
Big egos there that wouldn't want to lose.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Dream Team had a game, an intramural scrimmage, and only the coaches were in the gym. And apparently, it got quite heated and unbelievably competitive. And
yeah,
that was the toughest game both sides said they had the whole time.
Yeah, I saw that too.
So, Paul, with some young people, middle school, high school kids watching this, what advice would you give if they have an Olympic dream? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I've since the COVID hit, and I've been out sailing with my kids, and even sailing with our junior team here. I think that the main thing I see that people need to do a little differently, instead of just sailing with your junior sailing team and just sailing a laser or an optimist, go out and sail with your family or some other good sailor on a bigger boat that you can crew for them on, because you learn so much from doing that, and you'll be much better when you jump back in your optimist or in your laser. And it'll also help you if you go on to Olympic class boats where you might have to tune your own boat and take care of your own boat. You can see how the adults do it, and you can learn a lot from them.
Kevin, what would you say?
I agree with Paul. I think the way, I sailed Etchells with DC and Bobby Campbell, and I got to, race with Randy and catamarans, and I just sailed with so many good people on the big boats, with the Chessie program and Gavin Brady running the boats for George. And we did, when he had the Santa Cruz 70, and we did the Annapolis to Newport and broke the record. And, sailing with Stu Hebb in the Pineapple Cup, we broke the record in the Aerodyne 38. And sailing with Steve Benjamin.
That's a long way in a 38-footer to go to Jamaica.
Yeah, we played the whole way, Gary. I mean, we had 5 spinnakers and we finished with 1, But we got to the club. Benji was on a TP52, I think, and we came in not long after them, and no one could believe we were there. When we set the perf record, I don't think it'll ever be broken. It was Teton won the big boat that year, but that was really a fun time. We had the 2 Coster tuning partners that for Paul and I from the Netherlands as drivers, and boy, was that a blast.
I bet it was, surfing all the way. It's a long way because you got kind of a close reach or almost upwind, and then you start bending around the Bahamas. And how close did you come to the beach off Cuba?
I was driving at that time. We had the kite up on starboard, and I got really lifted. So we jibed back out, and we just took it on port for many hours. And then we got lifted again, and we jibed, and we laid the finish line from there. So it was, but we came real close to the island, passing it.
Well, that's a nice long lay line to get a lift like that and jibe, and then you're
it was the race. That was really, I'm not kidding. We just got into those big waves. We were just absolutely flying, The boat was bouncing like a big dinghy.
I can imagine. Paul, have you done any offshore racing like that?
Nope, never done offshore.
I think, I'm trying to think of the year. In advance of the America's Cup in 2007, John Burnham, who was the editor of Sailing World magazine at the time, he said, Jobson, I want you to put together the fantasy crew. If you could select the crew for the next America's Cup, who would be on the boat? And I had you on the boat. I think I had you steering.
Yeah.
With Harry Melgus.
Flying the spinnaker.
I really think Paul is the best helmsman I've ever raced with. I have never sailed with anyone that focused and concentrated that hard on just driving the boat. I mean, he did not look around. If I didn't see a boat coming, we'd hit him. I mean, we hit a lot of boats. And
well, that's what an America's Cup helmsman is. It's just sole concentration. And
that's what I
at the end of the race, which side of the course were we on? You're just worrying about speed, just going.
Yes.
Let somebody else worry about where you are and what the other boat's doing.
Right.
And anyway, I had Harry Melgus as your tactician and Stan Honey as your navigator.
Excellent. Paul, has anyone ever asked you to drive a cup boat?
Luke was
No,
born.
no.
Yes.
No?
Yes, Kevin.
I
Yes,
bet they did,
they
Carrie.
did. Luke was born. Yes.
Carrie, come over here and join us. Let's see you here. Are you sitting on the floor listening to this?
What?
Are you sitting on the floor listening to this?
I am because I got out of the shower. I went for a swim. But yes, he was he's not telling y'all everything.
I am too.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Kevin, it's
it's
so
nice
good
to hear from your press agent.
So it wasn't long. Luke, our firstborn, had been born, and I think Kevin, you guys had just finished the Olympics in 2004, and someone invited him to be the tactician. And I say someone, Paul will know who that someone was. Who was that?
I don't know.
Yeah, he'll never tell you anything. So we thought about it, and of course, I was the one saying, we should do this. This is we're still young, and Paul had taken off from work at Raytheon to do these campaigns. Raytheon was very supportive. What a blessing that was, and they celebrated Kevin, you guys so much when y'all finished. But so Paul was worried about, real life beckons you after chasing gold for 4 quadrenniums.
And lots of traveling. Didn't like that anymore.
Yeah, lots of traveling. But they wanted him to be the tactician, and but it was only going to be like a 2-year commitment, right? It's America's Cup. Apparently, Gary, I know you know a lot more about the heartbeat of it. So he couldn't take off from work and go do the America's Cup and then come back to work again. That kind of grace was expended. And so the other part was health insurance for this new kid we had. And I thought it through. He blew it. He says he blew it off. But I'm the dreamer, and I know I have total faith in his ability. So I was flattered and kind of really thought it would be an exciting life, but we walked away.
Well, Carrie, I'd mentioned earlier that Buddy Melges won the America's Cup as a helmsman in 1992, and he was 62 years old. So there's time.
There's different boats nowadays, though. Those foiling.
No, they weren't a foiling 72-footer. No,
Yeah.
It was a big, heavy keel boat. But, I think if the New York Yacht Club were to win it, and they could, they might get it back to something more normal.
Yeah.
So don't turn down the phone call if you got one. I think you'd find it an intellectual challenge.
As long as Kevin can come along.
That's
There you
right.
go. Well, that's you'd need Kevin there. Carrie, do you get to do some sailing with Paul these days?
Yes. I had to beg him for 2 years. We finally got a Flying Scot. Friends up here, not that was at the top of our list, but our friends sail Flying Scots. So Wednesday nights, like tonight in 2 hours, we're gonna probably go sail the Flying Scot. I sail Sunfish Friday mornings with a group of girls. We meet at 7 a.m. and go out before it's hot because it's so hot here in
Is
Texas.
there wind?
Sometimes it was really light last time. I'm not very heavy, so I like the lighter wind. But yeah, so I'm sailing, and I tell you, COVID has been such a blessing to our family. It has changed. It's helped us go in some direction I dreamed we would go with Paul as a sailor, especially. Our sons would not be exposed to the amount of sailing they are. Paul and I probably wouldn't be back in the sailing. He's working at home. I just love the quality of life that's happening with this. It's not what we all ask for as Americans, but the Lord is working great things in families, I think. And I mean, in some tragic things, I understand everybody doesn't get along. But our boys are sailing, and they would not have been sailing so much if it weren't for COVID.
Very good. Paul, where's your gold medal?
I think it's in our filing cabinet.
How about Kevin? Do you have your gold medal around?
Yeah. It hangs up there with the gold and the silver right next to the torch that I ran in the 96 games. I keep it. I'll bring them over.
There you go, Paul. Show him. Gary, here's the.
Oh, that's I remember him wearing that in the picture.
There's
Yeah.
the reed.
Well, yeah.
So
It's not green anymore, but head hadn't got any bigger.
That was pretty cool.
This is the silver from Barcelona, and the goddess Nike is sitting down. The medals were like that for a long time. And then in Athens, they had her standing up. They deployed her wings, and that's the difference between the two medals. So now the medals look like the gold medal, whereas prior to Athens, they were looking like Barcelona and the other.
Turn them around. What's on the other side?
That's the motto, and Barcelona had the neat logo, and that's the Olympic motto is on the gold
In Greek.
in
In
Greek.
Greek, yeah.
Very cool. We have another one to look. Oh, look at this.
Well,
What a treat.
I'm looking at a cardboard box trying to dig all these out.
There's the one from
That's-
Sydney.
Yeah. Kevin, why did they make her stand up?
I'm not, well, it was just a new design, and that's how they're making the medals now. It's
So
you can see, so Barcelona and Sydney were the same type of sitting down. Yep.
yeah, and then the back in Barcelona, I know you have, is
Yeah.
not. It's interesting, yeah.
Right.
Oh, and I love Sydney's because it had the opera house. It's hard to see.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we can see it. It looks pretty
It has,
cool.
it has the opera house on it, which is right where they sailed. And the beauty of the Sydney Olympics was that when they sailed in the harbor, we could watch them. So Paul's family sat up on a hill, and yeah, and Kevin, you got that one. Was that Athens? Anyway, Sydney was exciting because we could cheer from the cliff up over the harbor.
And we could actually hear him cheering when we passed him on the cliff. So it's pretty interesting.
What was Carrie saying? Go left.
No.
No, they're just
that's
telling us to
pretty-
beat the Australians.
It was really fun. That was so exciting. I would encourage any kid who has a dream of going to the Olympics. It is as exciting as your imagination can imagine. It is that exciting.
Well, the great thing is we get to see it on TV, and I tried to get to the Olympics a couple times. I didn't make it, but I've been there plenty of times with the TV, so I feel like I've experienced it. Well, look, let me just say, Paul, Kevin, and Carrie, thank you very much. We probably should have gotten Elizabeth in on this too.
Yes. Where is
She's in
Olympic?
California, actually. She got a job, and her travel agency business, is pretty much kaput. And she got a job coaching 2 I-420 girl teams. And I can only thank God for it because she's making money.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And she's doing a lot of good work at U.S. Sailing. She and I serve on the nominating committee together. She's very good. Excellent.
You bet.
All right. Well, Paul, Kevin, and Carrie, you disappeared. Thank you very much. It was a great conversation. I really sincerely hope to see you guys in person sometime in the future. It's something else. So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
See you, Paul.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank
Thank you, Kevin.
Bye-bye.